The Bundoran Weekly is brought to you by AIB, supporting local businesses in Bundoran. For more, see aib.ie.
Hi everyone, it's Shane Smyth, Bundoran Tourism Officer. It is Friday the 30th of December 2022 and I'm here with you for the Bundoran Weekly Podcast, episode 214. It is the podcast that talks about everything Bundoran, and this week a special one as we're looking back over some of our highlights of 2022. And coming up, we're going to be chatting with Richie Fitzgerald, local surfer and author now, Des Cosgrove of Super Value Bundoran, about the Super Value expansion, the big job that they did in the shop earlier on this year. Tibi Rotaru, who is from Siret in Romania, and Siret in Romania is Bundoran's twin town in Romania through our Duzalaj Town Twinning Partnership, and it is one of the biggest border crossings from Ukraine. And he was telling me all about how they're coping with the demand of people coming in from Ukraine and trying to flee the war there earlier on this year. So we'll be playing back a little bit of that. Captain Barry Dolan from the 28th Infantry Battalion as well joined me earlier on this year because the 17th of February was the centenary of the British forces handing over the Finner camp to the Irish forces, and they had a big parade through Bundoran, and it was a rather spectacular one as well. So we'll be chatting to Captain Barry Dolan, playing some of that back. But first we're going to head back to the Bundoran Weekly Podcast, episode 169, which was at the start of the year, where I sat down with composer Michael McGlynn. Michael is one of the driving forces behind Anuna, who you may remember from Riverdance all of those years ago as part of the Eurovision, and many stage shows since then. Michael lives here in Bundoran and has an affinity and a connection to Bundoran, which he told me about.
My connection to Bundoran is very old, but it has been a huge inspiration to me as a place to come to, but also when I lived here, the memories of this extremely unique environment have stuck with me. I mean, somebody asked me the other day, when you dream, where do you dream of and what do you dream of? And I said, I dream of Rogie Rock in Bundoran. So it's a kind of a strange relationship, and it's wonderful that I've been able to bring my family back here. And it's a safe, unusual place. I think it has inspired quite a lot of the music I've written, and more recently I've started making films, and I've filmed quite a few things here in Bundoran. So I think I'm always anxious to get people to come here and to understand what a unique place it is to live and to visit.
See, you're nearly like my deputy.
Yeah, indeed I am. And also from the social media angle, actually, that funny enough comes from my dad. If you look behind us, just over here, you see the Great Northern. My father was the manager of the Great Southern Hotel, right, which was what predated this, and his name was McGlynn, even though we were never related to the people that came after us. Yes. Andrew McGlynn was the manager there for many years when CIE were part of the Great Southern franchise. And so I spent a number of years up here exploring on my own in the days when they let kids out to do what they wanted. So it's a wonderful association and great memories.
Fantastic. So you're not from here then?
No, I wasn't born here. I think you can probably hear in my accent that I have I suppose it's quite a flat accent. Yeah, because my family originally from Limerick.
Right.
And then I live in Dublin, but I've spent most of my life travelling. But we did spend quite a lot of time here, but I never developed the Bundoran accent. Right. You know, I'm sure, and you can't put it on either. You really can't.
Yeah. So one of the things, we're probably going to go around the houses in this, but let me talk about something that you did more recently, I guess. You did a video in the cave at the Trupney Pool.
Well, first of all, I have to explain that I'm the artistic director, which basically means I have a big whip. and I whip everyone into shape of a group that spans 11 countries. And many years ago now, I stumbled upon Surf World, and Richie was the boss in there, and everyone knows Richie. And I started surfing for the first time, and then I thought, God, this would be a great place now when I'm bringing my group together, because I have two groups. One is called Anuna, and the other one is called Manam. And I think Anuna would be best known in Ireland for their involvement with river dance back in the early part of the 1990s. But Manam is more recent, and that is situated in Iceland and Ireland. So over the years, I've brought various iterations of the group here, and more recently I had Manam here, and the Icelanders were saying, this looks just like Iceland, but much smaller. So we're the last point before Iceland.
True.
And I remember standing down on the beach there in the ice cold with Bjarni Gudmundsson, and he was looking out over the plateau and Ben Bulben. And I said to him, do you know, does this have any echo? And it was freezing. And he was wearing a thin coat. And he said, yes. He said, the mountains are quite like Iceland, but it's much warmer.
Right. Wow.
So they walk around in ice cold up there. Yeah, it's a wonderful place. Yeah. So I bring them here. I introduce them to the local nightlife and the local scene, and of course the surfing. And it's a relationship which I think is very close to us all.
The Bundoran Weekly.
That's Michael McGlynn. You can hear that full interview on podcast episode 169. It is the Bundoran Weekly, and you can find that on your favourite podcast app. And indeed, you can look for it on YouTube as well. We're looking back over the year of 2022 and some of the guests that we had on the Bundoran Weekly podcast. We move now to February of 2022 and episode 172. And I was joined by Captain Barry Dolan of the 28th Infantry Battalion at Finner Camp. They were having a big parade to commemorate the centenary of the Defence Forces and the Irish Defence Forces taking over control of Finner Camp on the 17th of February 1922. And Captain Barry Dolan joined me from Finner Camp and first gave me a little bit of the history.
So on the 17th of February 1922, the Finner Camp was handed over from the Bedfordshire Regiment of the British Army to the local Irish military forces in the area here. So on the day itself, there was a Captain Jim Murphy from Bundoran. He took over the camp, and he handed the responsibility of it over to Brigadier General Seamus Devons, who was from Grange in County Sligo. And on the same day, then the camp was left in with a small garrison under the command of a Commandant O'Doherty. So that would have been kind of where Finner Camp would have come into Irish hands, but obviously there would have been quite a significant military history here prior to that as well. And the British would have had a presence in the area for a significant period of time beforehand. So looking back to 1896 is kind of when Finner Camp would have been bought from a local family, and it was kind of like a training area for the local British Army barracks, which is in Ballyshannon, which is the old Rock Barracks, which is since closed, obviously. So since then, basically, it would have been occupied by a military force. Obviously, the British from that period onwards, and then ourselves then from 1922. You would have had the Royal Enniskillen Fusiliers, who would have been headquartered in Enniskillen, but they would have had training, etc., in Finner Camp, and they would have done their training prior to going to the Boer War and also prior to going to World War I. So a lot of the people who would have went to World War I with the 36th Ulster Division, their final place in Ireland would have been in Finner Camp before they would have deployed over there, you know.
So obviously Finner is beside the dunes and beside the sea and
Correct,
stuff.
yeah.
And does that provide better conditions for training for different type of missions or whatever?
It would, yeah. I suppose the sand in particular, if you're looking at going into kind of, I know the weather up in this area of the world mightn't always be sunny, but it would kind of give different aspects of training that could have been done at the time, you know. And they would have built the ranges down the back in the sand dunes, kind of facing the sun to give them what would have been like to fire into the sun, etc. It was. I suppose they would have been built to try and simulate as much as possible what would have been going into when they went across to those areas, or those wars, should I say, or those theatres of war. Yeah.
Tell me just briefly then about the planning for this kind of event. Obviously, it's not a small thing.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I would definitely agree with you there. There are a number of different activities that will be going on concurrently. So yeah, we'll be getting support from the Air Corps. We'll be doing a fly past as we go into camp. We'll be getting support from the EOD, which is Bomb Disposal Unit. We'll be providing a demonstration of what their capabilities are in camp as well. Engineers, logistical planning is going to be massive as well for it too. So we're in the final process of basically kind of tying it all together this week now. So hopefully next week there will be no major issues on the day.
Well, no better people from personal experience of being part of the RNLI contingent in the 2016 parade through Dublin. I was just flummoxed by the planning, and obviously, and they say to use the phrase military precision, but honest to God, it was just fascinating, and it was great to be a part of, and no doubt that it'll be a big success on the day, and hopefully we get the weather from above as well.
That's yes, if we could arrange that would be brilliant.
We'll do our best. We'll do our best.
The Bundoran Weekly.
My thanks to Captain Barry Dolan there. You can hear the full interview on episode 172 of the Bundoran Weekly, and indeed you can check out the parade and some of the after events as well that happen at Finner Camp on the Discover Bundoran Facebook page, and they will also form part of the Reeling in Bundoran 2022, which is available now on our website and across our social media channels as well. We move on to April of this year and episode 177, and we were joined from Siret in Romania by Tibi Rotaru, and Tibi is one of the vice presidents of the Duzelage Town Twinning Network, which Bundoran is part of. We are the Irish partner, and Bundoran's twin town in Romania is Siret. It is one of the largest border crossings from Ukraine, and obviously with the war going on, they were very, very much affected in Siret and providing a lot of humanitarian aid. And I first asked Tibi to tell me a little bit about Siret.
Yes, actually it is a border city. We have only 4 kilometers from here to the border area, and actually Siret is the first European Union city the Ukrainian citizens are entering in after they are crossing the border. So we always been a border city.
Wow. Obviously, it's been a lot busier over the past couple of weeks with everything that's going on, but is Siret one of the main border crossing points then from Ukraine? Obviously, there's quite a long border, but Siret is one of the main border points.
It is a very long border, but actually Siret is the largest one. It's the most important border cross point for the whole Romania. It's both important for people and for merchandise. There's a lot of traffic with lorries and stuff like that. So we are the largest border point. The other one is in northern part of Romania, which is a lot smaller. And the other border point it's in the southern part of Romania, close to Danube. But we are the largest one actually.
So you're assisting with the humanitarian effort there. Tell me a little bit about what you guys are actually doing.
What to start with? Actually, we were there from the very first unhappy day of this war starting. And first of all, we started to organize things in order to receive refugees into the border area. During the highest peak of the number of the refugees, we had something like 750 refugees per hour. And of course, it wasn't easy. All of them came afraid, cold, and stuff like that. We provided some fresh food, hot drinks, and after that, we realized that they need a lot more. They need blankets, they need warm clothes, they need diapers for children, we needed diapers for adults and stuff like that. So it was crazy. The first refugee camp was also organized in Siret, into the Siret Stadium. It was a refugee camp of 201 places inside, but on Wednesday night we had 400 people there in the refugee camp. So it was really, really big.
You mentioned that you had up to 400 people per hour crossing. How do you deal with that amount of people? And obviously, it was new to you guys at the start. And has it become a little bit easier, a little bit more structured in these past couple of days? Or
Yes, so the beginning we have to say it was hectic, it was chaotic. We are very lucky that we have a very good collaboration between the NGOs, the civil society, and the local administration. So we work together for the first couple of days until the things start moving pretty smoothly. We also had the help of the emergency department. That means police, firefighters, everybody was. We were all in the same boat. So as I told you at the beginning, we had 750 people per hour. Now we are lower. We have only 250 people per hour crossing the border. The good thing is, and that makes things a little bit, let's say, easier for us, is that the people that are crossing the border, even right now, they are not here to stay in Syria. They stay here only to wait for their relatives, friends to come and pick them up. They stay here until they find a mean of transportation to the other part of the country or to the Western Europe, or they stay here if they have nowhere else to go, nowhere to go. And but as an average, we say that only, let's say, 20% of the Ukrainian crossing the border will stay around here more than one day. The ones that are staying are the ones that have some problem with papers. In the hurry of leaving Ukraine, they left their papers behind. They don't have the, let's say, good papers for their children. They don't have passports, especially biometrical passports and stuff like that. So we provide at the border area, at the refugee camp, we provide help with immigration paper too. So when Ukrainian people are leaving Syria, they leave Syria with all the papers in order.
The Bundoran Weekly.
That's Tibi Rotaru from Siret in Romania. It is one of Bundoran's twin towns through the Duzelaj Town Twinning Network, and we're delighted to have him on to explain what is happening from the Romanian point of view at the largest border crossing from Ukraine. That was on podcast episode 177, which you can go back and listen to the full interview there by searching that in your favourite podcast app. We move on now to local and to Des Cosgrove. And Des, of course, you'll know, is the owner of Cosgrove Super Value here in Bundoran. They had a massive refit earlier on this year, and we had remarked how it had been less than a year since we sat down to chat about the upcoming renovations. And we went from there.
Oh God, where did the year go to? When we were talking about myself and actually Tara, we were talking about that it was about 3 years ago we started the planning process for putting together the whole redevelopment of the shop, and we said, where did the 3 years go to? Not alone the last year go to, but yeah, it's been a tough year because you're still managing the exit. When I say exit, still a major, COVID's still a major, but it's, we've been exiting out over a period of time, and we've had to manage that process. So it's been tough. It's been a tough revamp. It's probably the toughest revamp I've ever done in my life, and I've done some major ones in the other shops as well. So, but the results to date has been fantastic. The response has been fantastic. So very, very happy with it.
I suppose one of the tricky things about doing a revamp as big as this is that you stayed open throughout, and there was a bit of disruption.
Oh my God. I actually, part of that chat that we were having, we were just saying about, how customers put up with some absolute days where they're like, actually it was funny, one woman said in one week, she said the apples went to 4 different locations.
I think that was the thing, yeah,
and that was only one product. She was on about. She said, she said I couldn't find the apples, and she said I came in the next day and the apples was on the other side. So and I have to say that's testament to the customer we have. And again, in that chat we were talking about 14 years here. And customers, we have a lot of the existing customers that come into us, because Tara and Terry and Claire and Celine and Mags and Carmel, I could name them all. They're all here 14 years. Wow. So and I'm really proud of those people. They're the people that have delivered it, and delivered the standards here week on week. But also those customers that I was talking about, they've stuck with it as well. Like I was dropping a customer home here, the shop wanted. I'd say I dropped her home the first week that we opened the shop, and I dropped her home this last week as well. So, and she was just talking about the transition of the shop. So that's a lovely thing, you know, that they've come on that journey with us, which is great.
So it's been a major expansion, really. You cut into a lot of the couple of units that were outside as well. So, and it's just given you so much more breathing room.
I suppose one of the things when we were 3 years ago, when we were looking at the shop, and we said, look, what are we not offering? You know, where's the parts of the business that we feel that we're weak on? And we've done a fairly major assessment on that. And fresh was one of our main compounding issues, that we hadn't enough of range in fresh. And you know, people were saying, when I go here, this is what I can get. And I suppose, you know, we're very strong on the grocery, the dry ambient goods that we call the cans of beans, and that we're good at that. And we actually when we look at benchmark reports, we would over trade in that area. So, and fresh was always our under trade. So I suppose the key focus was to bring fresh alive in the store. And my God, when you come inside the door, we hired a consultant. We spent some time with him, spent about 8 months working through the plans in great detail. Some people actually think the fresh is nearly too big, but when it'll be all finished over the next 2 weeks, you'll see the cutting edge of where fresh is going to go. And we've expanded our kitchen. We've our own fresh bakery now from scratch. So we've bakers now baking bread every morning, baking all our own treats, all of that. So that inevitability was something that we had to bring on. We had to bring that into our business, you know, to give ourselves that differential spec from anybody else, you know. So
you basically listened to what the customers wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. We've done a lot of consumer research through our Red Sea polls and all of that.
Okay, right.
And we have obviously our loyalty card and all of that. So we got some information back through that. We have a geocoding report as well, which gives us available turnover in the area and what we were missing. So there's a thing called the Common Basket Report, which gives you your portion of that basket. And we were able to extract information from that, and we saw our weaknesses in that. Yeah. So it was fairly scientific.
It's all about data these days, isn't it?
That is huge, you know. Data is protected at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, you're limited in what you can get to a certain degree, but there's a lot of trends. So I went to America just start of COVID, and I spent a week looking in Canada at different parts of Canada, and because they are so far ahead in fresh, and some of the stuff we have done down there has been guided along that route. We also are obviously Musgraves is our retail partner, and they're very experienced in that. So we're the first store outside of Supervalia Knockline in Dublin to have this new spec. So we worked with them as well. Now they thought we were mad in some of the ideas, but it wouldn't be the first time I was told I was mad. But look,
you have to think big.
Yeah, think big. Well, it's like Noah's Ark. You have to build it and they'll come.
The Bundoran Weekly.
Finally, on the best of the Bundoran Weekly for 2022, it was the turn of Richard Fitzgerald, local surfer and now local author, who wrote his first book, Cold Water Eden, and it was a great opportunity to sit down and with him over the summer months before the book came out at all, and before I'd even read it, to talk a little bit about him writing the book, and first spoke to him about how he used his time in lockdown.
I suppose you didn't put the time to waste, which is why we're here chatting to you today.
Yeah, look, lockdown has been difficult for everyone, and we had a huge lockdown in Melbourne in Australia. But if there was a silver lining in a global shutdown and a global pandemic, for me, it gave me time to, I suppose, reflect and maybe try something different and flex my wings, try a bit of writing, which I did, and that materialised over the space of about 18 months, 2 years, into a book. You know, so it was time well spent on my part anyway.
Richard Fitzgerald, author. Who'd have thunk that one?
Yeah. I have a lot of different suits, but author is definitely not one that I thought would ever be beside my name, or certainly not with a big publishing house either. So it's a dream come true in a way. You don't fall into these things, you know. You put in the time and effort, and it's a process. But it was an enjoyable process. I loved it. it's a pinch myself moment. I still, Shane, honestly, me, myself, my family, I can't really get my head around it, that it's actually happening, that I'm an author, that I've written a book, and that it's going to get a pretty big release, a global release. So yeah, I'm as surprised and excited as anyone else.
Tell me then, how did it come about? Was it your idea? Was it a nudge from somebody, or did you just kind of start, I need to start writing stuff down just to have it?
Yeah, I sound like I'm on radio now. Anyone who knows me, but anyone who knows me knows that I like to talk and I like stories and I like to, hear them and tell them. And I suppose I have plenty to say. So my wife, Bryony, is always, she's always been prompting me to sit down and, write fact or fiction or write something, because I've read books my whole life and I love writing and I love it as an art form. So, it started really putting up small Facebook posts with photographs of Bundoran, surf related,
yes, I remember
not
this, yeah.
related to surfing, characters that are long gone out of Bundoran. And I kept writing, and I would write individual stories, and then my old classmate Mark Egan gave me an opportunity to write on Historical Bundoran, which is a lovely online platform. So I did that for 6 weeks, and that was a good way to test my material, even though it was separate and there were separate entities. So I did that for 6 weeks or 2 months, and I just kept writing stories and just writing from memory and just writing what it was like growing up in Bundoran, surfing, traveling overseas. So as I say, it's a surf book, but it's not really a surf book. It's a memoir of sorts, and it's got a lot of character in it, a lot of color. It's happy, it's sad, it's very much me. I very much opened myself up. I'm very honest in it, and I shoot from the cuff. If anyone knows me, they'll know that's the way I am. So the book is very much a reflection of me, I suppose.
And sort of putting all those stories together, most of it was from memory, but was there a lot of was there checking of dates and all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I work I get like visual indicators, so photographs are really powerful for me, and I've suppose blessed and cursed. I have a very, very, very good memory. I can remember real vivid details of conversation and, from when I was a child, or, events. Obviously memory is, gets influenced by different factors, and other people's memories come into it. But yes, mostly written from memory. Anything I needed to fact check, I did, whether it was with people like Mark Egan or, the Irish Surfing Association or, there's plenty of stuff out there about Bundoran and, old and new. So I did, but it's not a tome. It's not like a textbook or anything like that. It's not overly done in that way. It's very story driven. So I kind of cut back way on jargon and anything that would lag the book down. It's just really a personal story that drags in characters, the flavour of Bundoran, good, bad, and the ugly, and everything about growing up here and then further afield. So yeah, it's very much it's written from memory, but yes, I used a lot of different ways and means to fact check, whether it's photographs or dates or so on. So, and
does it go chronologically, kind of from youth to older, or is it
it is a chronological story. There's several different themes running through the book, and it's kind of got a very kind of even pacing throughout, I would say. But yeah, it is chronological. I kind of begin at the start and end where I fancied ending the book. So yeah, there is a certain, unless you are Hunter S. Thomas and can write Gonzo style, I think there's a chronological form in every book. You have to kind of follow a story thread, or at least a timeline. Sure. So I certainly do that in it, because my first book, how's that for confidence? It's my first book, and it's formulaic in a way. You have to, and as I say, I'm no author yet, but it does follow those kind of formulas of a standard book, I suppose.
The Bundoran Weekly.
My thanks to Richie Fitzgerald. You can hear that full interview by searching for episode 196 of the Bundoran Weekly podcast on your favourite podcast app, or indeed on YouTube as well. That is going to do it for the Bundoran Weekly for this week, and indeed for this year. Over 2022, we have brought you over 15 hours of content in 48 episodes. And I want to say thanks to everybody who has participated in the podcast, who sat down for a chat with me and to talk about Bundoran, talk about their lives and to talk about the activities and events that they've been organising over the past 12 months. Thank you also to Teresa O'Neill and Danielle and everybody at Bundoran Community Centre. Teresa especially for doing our community corner each and every week on the podcast. And also to Mark Egan and co at the Songs of Earn, and they provided the signature tune, The Man from Bundoran. It's been our signature tune since day one of the podcast back in 2018, and no doubt we will continue to use that in the days, weeks and months to come. We are back again on Friday the 13th of January 2023. I do hope that you can join me then. In the meantime, have a great new year. Have a safe one. Thanks for listening and good luck.
The Bundoran Weekly is a production of Discover Bundoran.
The Bundoran Weekly is brought to you by AIB, supporting local businesses in Bundoran. For more, see aib.ie.